Why do U.S. citizens care about what the Founding Fathers wanted? If someone writes a law, what's more important, the literal verbiage of the law or the intent of the law? Well, now let's say the law was written 300 years ago. Language has evolved in 300 years, so how do we best interpret that law? For the U.S., many of our laws, Constitution, were written 300 years ago, so intent becomes much more important than just literal verbiage. You would probably respond, why not update the law? Fair. Except our system was designed to make that very difficult. Because what they wanted has been codified as a constitution and as amendments to that constitution. Knowing what they wanted is essential for interpreting what those documents mean. For example, what they wanted is essential to determine whether the right to bear arms should guarantee that right to the level of a flintlock musket or an Apache helicopter, and whether that is a personal right or a right to maintain a state militia or National Guard. Edit. If you don't like the Constitution or amendments as they are, then amend them again. There is not need to reinterpret them as if the authors always meant what you now want all along. There's been 27 amendments so far, so it's not like people don't know how to do it. We don't. We just care about using them in arguments. Culturally, the U.S. takes a lot of pride in establishing a constitutional republic as early as it did. It's been around in its current form since before the French Revolution, with only tweaks here and there to its structure. As a result, its founders are treated as almost mythical figures. The reality is these are just a bunch of dudes who frequently didn't get along and had different opinions from each other on everything. Aaron Burr literally killed Alexander Hamilton, for God's sake. Some of them I agree with on a lot of things. Others I think were completely wrong. Frequently the ones I agree with more than others are terrible human beings. Just as often they are fine individuals that promoted the wrong ideas. All of that said, rhetorically bringing one of them up who helps make my point is something I will do every time in a political argument. I can also count on someone trotting out one of the ones I disagree with to make the opposite point. It's just baked into the culture at this point. They wrote the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the institutional rules for the country. The rules still in place today. This has legal ramifications, especially in decisions of the Supreme Court. Even though hundreds of years have gone by, human nature will always be the same. All power always corrupts. They got a chance to be completely free of it and made a constitution of what were their baseline theory of how to keep away a tyrannical government, even though these days it doesn't seem to be holding up too well. Because our country was founded on an idea. The Founding Fathers created the founding documents, Constitution, Bill of Rights, as an overall basis for a new nation that would have independence, freedom and individual rights that were in complete contrast to an absolute monarchy. Obviously, a lot of the details reflected the cultural and societal norms at the time. The fathers weren't stupid though, and knew that these norms would change in the future, which is why the Constitution can be amended to abolish slavery, allow women to vote, protect civil rights, etc. But even those amendments can't be added arbitrarily, which is why it's difficult to achieve. Because they need to be changed at the will of the citizenry majority. The Second Amendment, for example, is controversial because the populace is split on it, and changing it based on whichever side has the loudest voice or the most political power at the time means that the other substantial side loses their rights. This is why the Supreme Court is problematic, and the appointed judges should be neutral and chosen on their merits, not their political leanings. Fortunately, the founding documents also established that individual states have their independence as well and have their own state constitutions. This is extremely important for issues such as abortion rights, marijuana legalization, gun control, death penalty, etc. It guarantees that the citizens of each individual state can make decisions for their own state through public elections. If someone vehemently disagrees with their state laws, they have the freedom to relocate to any other state of their choosing. That in itself isn't a guaranteed right in some other nations. The Founding Fathers weren't perfect, and neither are the documents they created. The basic ideas and values still hold strong though, which are a nation of independent citizens and freedom from tyranny. In my observation, that's what most Americans are proud of and are determined to maintain. Democracy was a new idea at the time, and it's currently at risk across the globe. So Americans hold those strongly. It's important to remember that the freedom of beliefs and speech are ingrained in our founding. And that means individuals can be as vocal and open about their opinions, including the Constitution, as they want. That's what the Fathers wanted, too. Personally, I think that they would be proud of Americans today who embrace the ability to argue and debate and complain or glorify them, because that's what true freedom is. Read the U.S. Constitution. The Bill of Rights especially. It's kind of like religious people who still listen to some guy from thousands of years ago, quoting some holy scripture and using it to support their point because otherwise their argument falls apart. I would assume it is simply because they agreed with whatever point they were trying to make. Like no one is going to point to the Founding Father if the point they are trying to make is women should be allowed to vote. 'Cause clearly the Founding Father believed in a very restrictive right to vote. You had to own land, be a man, not a woman, not a slave, not Jewish, not XYZ, so only like 205 of people could vote. Is it appeal to authority, where people bring up the Founding Fathers like they were some sort of authority? Our laws are judged by the federal courts based on what the prevalent thought was of the legislators that created the laws. Liberal judges use what the legislators would think if they were in the present time. The laws set forth in our Constitution supersede all federal and state laws. To see this effect at its most devastating, look up Dred Scott. It's the case that tipped the balance towards slavery and was one of the acts that mobilized the country to approve of the Civil War. Finally, our Founding Fathers were incredibly diverse. From religious fanatics to Benjamin Franklin, who was a real freak and partier. Their distrust of every institution of government gave us the system of checks and balances that keep us from terrorizing each other. Remember, we are founded by people you all really preferred far away from yourselves. America is also quite a young country. We don't remember who founded most other countries. If we did, they would probably be used to win arguments too. The idea is supposed to be that the United States was created as an idealist nation and that we should use that mindset as a foundation for growth. Some people, however, try to use it as a technical blueprint on what should or shouldn't be instead of a general guide. Because the Founding Fathers are viewed with a certain reverence, they both founded a new and idealistic country and, for the most part, supported that new country through their actions and words. George Washington could have been president for life, but he thoughtfully and willingly surrendered power. That was novel and set quite a precedent. Because they were brilliant. Have you read some of their works? The literature of the founding generation are the best conversations on running a modern, free bureaucratic state. America is a unique philosophy. As defined in our founding documents, we try to stay true to the philosophy, although not always successful. Because unlike most countries, We've had the same system of government for over 230 years. The Founding Fathers are important because what they created still influences our lives. Why do Europeans obsess over Americans? At the most basic level, religion and royalty ruled the world 300 years ago. A society of the people for the people with the right to freedom of speech. Religion, etc., wasn't available really. Your king was your king, and if you had a problem with that, then you were killed. The Founding Fathers had really good ideas. The basis of them has allowed the USA to become what it is, which is a pretty good country.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.